My girlfriend slept with my brother. 10 days later, she showed up to the family gathering with him, holding hands and wearing the necklace I gave her. I thought everyone would be outraged until my mom started taking pictures of the new happy couple, and my dad told me to let bygones be bygones. So I did, but then my ex reached out to me, and I found out a dark secret that shattered what was left of my family forever. When I was 18, my brother started dating Vivian. They had slept together behind my back 2 weeks ago. It was an affair that developed in front of my very own eyes. One day they were working on a project, and 3 weeks later I walked in on them going at it, him grunting behind her and pulling on her ponytail. My brother waited 10 days to bring her over for the first time. She wore heels, a fancy dress, and put more effort into this than she had into our entire relationship. Dude, I know this is hard, my brother said, but we're happy and in love. As a brother, I'm asking you to look past what happened. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I sat at the table with the rest of my family, watching them make space for my brother and Vivian at the head. My mom kept trying to get everyone to smile for pictures. Vivian was wearing the necklace I gave her on our last anniversary. I tried to ask them if they really thought this was normal. My dad said, "Listen, we're moving on as a family. Let's try be civil." I felt totally crushed. Following that one meeting, everyone in my family shipped my brother and Vivian. Group chats became full of them, arm in arm, making heart hands. Everyone acted like this was how it was supposed to be. The turning point came on my own birthday. Vivian insisted on making my favorite cake, and my mom snapped photos of them two baking for the album. They even got to blow out the candles. My birthday became all about the cute couple. My words were ignored whenever I tried to talk. I felt like a ghost wandering around my own family. That was the night I started drinking. I scrolled through all our old photos on my phone, deleting them all. I also stopped answering texts from friends. I didn't want to explain. A lot of nights I just lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, drinking whatever I could find. The isolation set in fast. Vivian and my brother started bringing me stuff. Cookies, t-shirts, cards with hearts on them, and notes telling me how proud they were of me for being so mature about this. Every time I brought up how I felt, everyone got quiet. Then someone would change the subject. I slowly noticed I was missing from more and more family photos in the album. Eventually, I stopped sleeping and started having panic attacks. My doctor sent me to a therapist. At first, I just sat there, but after a while, the words tumbled out. It felt like someone finally saw me again. My therapist got me back into running, which helped, and I started keeping a journal. For the first time in months, I felt a little less alone. But then came their engagement party. The invitation had my name on the front and center like it was some kind of honor to be invited. The group chat blew up with messages about love and celebration. My mom called me 3 times that week, insisting I show up. But Mom, Vivian is literally my— Stop it, she interrupted. Family is family. This is the only engagement party your brother will ever have. I'm ashamed to say it, but I caved and went. When I got to the party, barely anyone even looked at me. I sat in the corner, watching everyone drink and celebrate. When halfway through, my brother pulled me aside. He looked me up and down, then drunkenly grinned. You have no idea how long I had planned this. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl, like there was more to his words. Later that night, I found myself alone in the guest room. My brother's phone was sitting on the bed. I don't know what came over me, but I unlocked it. I scrolled through his messages with Vivian. My stomach turned. There were months of messages. They had been having the affair way before I initially caught them. Even worse, they planned this from the beginning. Vivian had never loved me. She used me to get to my brother. That was my final straw. I didn't say anything, but I started looking for my own apartment the next day. A big family dinner came a week later. I sat down at the table, intending to get through this in silence like I had always done. But then, about halfway through the meal, my mom snapped a photo of my brother and Vivian passionately kissing. That was it for me. I put my fork down and started talking. My dad tried to interrupt, but I cut him off. Everyone looked shocked as I unloaded everything. I told them everything. I described walking in on Vivian and my brother, the months of being frozen out, the messages I'd seen on his phone. I told them how it felt to watch everyone pretend like this was normal. I looked at everyone in turn. My dad stared at his hands. My mom started to cry. My brother looked away. Vivian wouldn't meet my eyes. When I finished, nobody said a word. I got up, grabbed my coat, and walked out. Afterward, a few relatives reached out. Some apologized. Some defended my brother. The group chat split in two. And then about a month later, at my own apartment, I got a letter from Vivian. I don't know why, but I opened it. "I'm sorry, Andrew. There's so much you don't know, but I had to do this. Please meet for coffee. Here's my number. I'll explain everything." I stared at the letter for what felt like hours. My hands were shaking. I hadn't heard from Vivian directly since that awful dinner. Part of me wanted to rip it up and forget I ever saw it, but another part of me needed answers. I needed to know why she did what she did, why my family acted like I was nothing. I grabbed my phone and typed out a quick message to the number she left. "Coffee shop on Main Street, tomorrow at 2. I hit send before I could change my mind. She replied almost immediately with a thumbs up emoji. That was it. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying everything in my head. The way Timothy looked at me me at the engagement party, the messages I found, my mom taking all those pictures. It felt like I was missing something important. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vivian wearing that necklace I had saved for months to buy her, sitting next to Timothy like she belonged there. The next day, I got to the coffee shop 20 minutes early. I picked a table in the corner where I could see the door. I ordered a black coffee but couldn't drink it. My stomach was in knots. The coffee shop was busy with the afternoon rush, people typing on laptops or chatting in hushed tones. Normal people with normal lives. I envied them. When Vivian walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked different. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, just jeans and a plain sweater. Nothing like the dressed-up version of her I'd seen at family events. She looked more like the Vivian I had fallen for, not the one who had been paraded around by my family. She ordered something at the counter, then came over to my table. She didn't smile. She just sat down across from me and wrapped her hands around her cup. I waited for her to speak first. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. "Thanks for meeting me," she finally said. She looked nervous. "Good." I just nodded. I wasn't giving her anything. The silence between us stretched uncomfortably as I watched her fidget with her cup sleeve, tearing it into tiny pieces. "I know you hate me," she continued. "You should. What I did was terrible, but there's more to the story." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm listening." My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Vivian took a deep breath. "Your mom approached me about 6 months before everything happened. She cornered me at that family barbecue last summer, while everyone was distracted by your dad's grilled ribs. She told me I should be with Timothy instead of you. I felt like I'd been punched. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. What? She said I was wasting my potential with you, that Timothy was the better match for someone with my ambitions." Vivian looked down at her coffee. "I told her she was crazy, that I loved you." My head was spinning. This couldn't be real. The background noise of the coffee shop faded as I tried to process what she was saying. "So what changed?" She threatened me. Vivian's voice got quieter. "She found out I was adopted. It's something I never told anyone, not even you. My birth parents were substance dealers who went to prison when I was 3. There were incidents before I was taken away. Your mom somehow accessed my file through a former colleague who works in social services." I just stared at her. This was insane. "My mom blackmailed you?" Vivian nodded. "She said if I didn't do what she wanted, she'd make sure everyone knew, that she'd expose details that would ruin my career as a teacher. Those private school parents would never let someone with my background teach their children." Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, just a growing rage toward my family. "So you decided to cheat on me with Timothy?" I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. A couple at the next table glanced over at us, then quickly looked away. "I didn't want to at first, I swear, but your mom kept pushing us together, setting up those project meetings, and then..." She trailed off. "And then what?" I demanded, my knuckles white around my coffee cup. "And then I started to like him." She looked ashamed. "I know that's awful to say, but it happened. Your mom got what she wanted." She twisted a strand of hair around her finger, a nervous habit I used to find endearing. I pushed my chair back. This was too much. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I can't live with the guilt anymore. Because what they did to you was wrong." She reached across the table like she wanted to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Timothy knows everything. He was part of the plan from the beginning. He even bragged about it to his friends, how he was going to take you down a notch." I felt sick. My own family had plotted against me, used my girlfriend to hurt me, made me feel crazy for being upset about it. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too crowded. I needed air. "I need to think," I told her. I stood up to leave, nearly knocking over my untouched coffee. "Andrew, wait." Vivian looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I still care about you. I know that sounds ridiculous after everything, but I do, and I'm so sorry. What your family did, what I helped them do, it was cruel." I walked out of the coffee shop without another word. My mind was racing. I needed to process what I'd just heard. My own mother had orchestrated this whole thing. Timothy had willingly participated. They'd gaslighted me for months, making me feel like I was overreacting, making me doubt my own sanity while they smiled for photos and celebrated their betrayal. I walked around town for hours, past the park where Vivian and I had our first date, past the movie theater where we used to spend Friday nights, places that once held happy memories now tainted by this revelation. The autumn air was crisp, but I barely felt it. By the time I got back to my apartment, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across my sparse furniture. I had a plan. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I wasn't going to disappear like they wanted me to. I texted Vivian. "I need proof, something I can use to confront them." Her response came quickly. "I have screenshots of conversations with your mom, and Timothy told me things when he was hammered, things about how they planned it all, how your mom always favored him. I'll send everything." My phone pinged with incoming files, screenshots, voice memos, photos with timestamps that proved everything. The evidence of their betrayal laid bare on my screen. I scrolled through it all, each new piece cementing my resolve. This was just the beginning. For the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt angry, and I was going to use that anger. My family thought they could erase me, replace me, and I would just fade away. They were wrong. I wasn't going to be their ghost anymore. Over the next few days, Vivian sent me more evidence. Voice voice recordings of Timothy laughing about how easy it was to take her from me. Screenshots of my mom's texts planning their accidental meetings. Photos of them together with timestamps that proved they'd been seeing each other long before I caught them. Each new piece of evidence felt like another knife in my back, twisting deeper with every revelation. The betrayal wasn't just a single moment anymore. It was calculated, methodical, spanning months of deception. I spent a whole night organizing everything into a folder on my laptop. I named it The Truth because I'm not creative when I'm angry. I also backed it all up to the cloud just in case. My hands were shaking the whole time, not from sadness anymore, but from rage. Pure, white-hot rage that burned through my veins and kept me awake until the sun rose, casting harsh light across my disheveled apartment. Vivian kept texting me, asking to meet again. I ignored her at first. I needed time to think. But after a week of stewing in my apartment, surrounded by empty takeout containers and half-finished bottles of whiskey, I finally agreed. This time we met at a small diner on the edge of town, somewhere my family never went, a faded place with cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that hummed overhead. I got there first again and picked a booth in the back. When Vivian slid in across from me, she looked even worse than before. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. She looked like I felt, hollowed out, exhausted, barely holding together. "I left him," she said before I could even speak. I packed my stuff and moved in with my friend Marlo. I just stared at her. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied that she'd left Timothy, but mostly I just felt numb, like I was watching someone else's life unfold from a great distance. "He freaked out," she continued, picking at a paper napkin, shredding it into tiny pieces that scattered across the laminated menu. "Showed up at Marlo's place at 3 a.m. screaming. We had to call the cops. That got my attention." "Are you okay?" She nodded. "They made him leave, but your mom's been calling me non-stop, threatening me again, saying I'll regret this." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and I noticed her hands trembling. I felt a weird twist in my stomach. Protective, maybe? I didn't want to feel anything for Vivian anymore, but hearing that my family was threatening her made me angry all over again. The rage I'd been nursing flared hotter, directed not at her, but at the people who should have loved me. "What are you going to do?" I asked her. She looked up at me with those eyes I used to get lost in. "I don't know. I'm scared, Andrew." The vulnerability in her voice hit me harder than I expected. We sat there for hours, talking, really talking, for the first time in months. She told me everything. How my mom had cornered her at that family barbecue last summer, pulling her aside while everyone was distracted. How Timothy had pursued her relentlessly once he got the green light from my mom, showing up at her workplace with flowers, sending expensive gifts she couldn't afford to return. How they'd made her feel special, wanted, part of the family in a way she'd never felt before as an adopted child with no real family connections. But also how they'd manipulated her, using her insecurities about her past against her, threatening to expose details that could ruin her career as a teacher at that prestigious private school with its strict moral clauses. I told her about my therapy sessions, about the drinking, about feeling invisible in my own family, always living in Timothy's shadow. We cried together in that booth until the waitress started giving us concerned looks, refilling our coffee cups with pitying glances. When we finally left, something had shifted between us. I wasn't ready to forgive her, not by a long shot, but I understood her better, and I wasn't alone in my anger anymore. We had a common enemy now. That night, Vivian texted me again. "I miss you. I know I have no right to say that, but I do." I stared at those words for a long time before responding, my thumb hovering over the keyboard as I drained another glass of bourbon. I miss who we were. It was the most honest thing I'd said in months. The next day, I woke up to more texts from Vivian. She'd sent me a voice recording of Timothy from the night before. He was hammered, slurring his words, but what he said made my blood run cold. "You think you can just leave me? After everything my mom did to set this up? You were supposed to be my trophy, not his. Never his. He doesn't deserve anything good." I played it 3 times, each time feeling sicker. This wasn't just about Vivian. This was about me. Timothy had always been jealous of me, though I never understood why. He was the one my parents bragged about, the one whose achievements were celebrated while mine were barely acknowledged, the golden child who could do no wrong, even when he stole the woman I loved. I called Vivian. "We need to talk, in person." We met at my apartment this time. It felt strange having her there. The last time she'd been in my space, we were still together, still happy, or at least I thought we were. The potted plant she'd given me was dead in the corner, a casualty of my neglect. She sat on my couch, looking small and vulnerable. I paced in front of her, trying to organize my thoughts, the hardwood floor creaking beneath my restless feet. "I think we should tell everyone the truth," I finally said, "about what my mom did, what Timothy did, all of it." Vivian looked terrified. "They'll destroy me, Andrew. Your mom has all that information about my past. So what? Let her tell everyone you're adopted. Who cares? It's not like it's something to be ashamed of." I was getting worked up, my voice rising with each word. "It's not just that." Vivian's voice got quiet. "My birth parents were substance dealers. They went to prison when I was 3. There were incidents, things that happened to me before I was taken away. Your mom threatened to make it all public. I stopped pacing. That's disgusting. She can't do that. It's probably illegal. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, knuckles white with tension. Vivian shrugged. Maybe, but the damage would be done. Everyone would know. I'd lose my job at the school. You know how parents are about teachers with questionable backgrounds. She was right. The private school where she taught had strict moral clauses in their contracts. It wasn't fair, but it was reality. The parents of her third graders wouldn't care that she was a victim. They'd only see the scandal. So what do we do? I asked, sitting down next to her on the couch, the cushions sagging beneath our combined weight. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since she'd arrived. I don't know, but I'm tired of being controlled by fear. Something changed in that moment. Maybe it was the way she looked at me. Maybe it was the shared anger we both felt. Maybe it was just the relief of not being alone anymore. Whatever it was, I found myself leaning toward her, and she was leaning toward me. The kiss wasn't planned. It just happened. And once it started, neither of us wanted to stop. All the hurt, all the betrayal, all the loneliness of the past months poured into that kiss. It wasn't sweet or romantic. It was desperate, needy, almost angry. We ended up in my bed. I won't go into details, but it was intense, different than it had been before. There was an edge to it, a darkness that hadn't been there when we were together. Afterward, we lay there staring at the ceiling, not touching, both processing what had just happened. What did we just do? Vivian whispered, her voice barely audible in the dim room. I didn't have an answer. I didn't know if this was revenge or reconciliation or something else entirely. All I knew was that for the first time in months, I didn't feel hollow inside. Stay, I said, and she did. The next morning was awkward. We moved around each other carefully, like we were afraid to acknowledge what had happened. I made coffee. She made toast. We ate in silence at my small kitchen table, the clock on the wall ticking loudly in the quiet apartment. I should go, she finally said. I have papers to grade. I nodded. Yeah, okay. At the door, she hesitated. Andrew, my phone rang, interrupting whatever she was about to say. It was my cousin Jeffrey. I hadn't talked to him since the family dinner blow-up. I let it go to voicemail. You should get that, Vivian said. It might be important. I checked the voicemail while she waited. Jeffrey's voice was urgent. Dude, you need to call me back ASAP. Your mom is on the warpath. She's telling everyone Vivian's been stalking you, that she's unstable. It's getting ugly. Call me. I looked up at Vivian, who was watching my face with concern. What is it? I played the voicemail for her. Her face went pale. She's trying to get ahead of the story, make me look crazy before I can tell anyone what really happened. We need to move fast, I said, before she can do more damage. Vivian nodded. What's the plan? That's how it started. Our revenge plan, or justice plan, or whatever you want to call it. We spent the whole day strategizing, hunched over my laptop at the kitchen table, fueled by too much coffee and righteous indignation. Vivian would reach out to Timothy, pretend she wanted to talk things through. Meanwhile, I'd contact relatives who'd been sympathetic to me after the dinner blow-up, people like Jeffrey, who might be willing to listen. Vivian left that afternoon with a determined look on her face. We had a plan. We had evidence. We had each other. For the first time in months, I felt like I might actually come out the other side of this mess. That night, Timothy called. I let it go to voicemail. His message was slurred, angry. He called me every name in the book, threatened me, said he knew I'd been with Vivian, that he'd make me pay. I could hear music and voices in the background. He was at a bar, probably the same one where he'd first started hitting on Vivian behind my back. I forwarded the voicemail to Vivian with a simple message. It's working. The next day, things escalated quickly. My mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I almost didn't answer the door, but curiosity got the better of me. She looked immaculate as always, not a hair out of place, designer purse clutched in her manicured hands. Her perfume, expensive and overpowering, filled my entryway as soon as I opened the door. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into my apartment without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door slowly, steeling myself for whatever was coming. About what? She turned to face me, her expression a perfect mask of motherly concern. About Vivian. She's not well, Andrew. She's been making up stories, harassing Timothy. The poor girl needs help. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. Is that so? My mom nodded, reaching out to touch my arm. I stepped back. We're all very worried about her, and about you. Getting mixed up with her again after everything she did to you. It's not healthy. Interesting perspective, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Especially considering you're the one who orchestrated the whole thing. Her expression flickered for just a second before the mask slipped back into place. I don't know what she's been telling you, but save it, Mom. I walked over to my laptop and opened it. I have the screenshots, the recordings, everything. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I turned the laptop toward her, showing her one of the screenshots Vivian had sent me. A text conversation between her and my mom, discussing how to get Vivian and Timothy together. The timestamp was from months before I caught them together. This is just the beginning, I told her. I have so much more. Want to hear the recording of you threatening to expose Vivian's childhood trauma if she didn't leave me for your precious favorite son? My mom's hand flew to her throat. You're making a mistake, Andrew. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You never thought I was good enough. You wanted Vivian for Timothy, not for me. So you manipulated her, threatened her, and destroyed our relationship. And then then you all gaslighted me for months, making me feel crazy for being upset about it. My mom's eyes hardened. The concerned mother act vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. You've always been so dramatic, so sensitive. Timothy would have never fallen apart like you did. He's stronger, better. The words hit like physical blows, but I didn't flinch. I'd suspected this was how she felt for years. Hearing it out loud was almost a relief. At least now I knew for sure. Get out, I said quietly, and tell your perfect son to stop calling me with hammered threats. I'm saving those too. She grabbed her purse, her knuckles white around the strap. You'll regret this, both of you. After she left, I sat down hard on my couch, shaking. I texted Vivian. My mom just left. It's getting real. She called me immediately. Are you okay? What happened? I told her everything. The mask slipping, the threats, the confirmation of what we already knew, that my mom had always seen me as the lesser son. I'm coming over, Vivian said. Don't be alone right now. She arrived 30 minutes later with takeout and a bottle of wine. We ate on my couch, talking strategy. The plan was evolving. It wasn't just about exposing them anymore. It was about reclaiming our narrative, our lives. We should go to the family dinner on Sunday, Vivian suggested. Together. I nearly choked on my wine. Are you insane? That would be walking into the lion's den. Exactly. They won't expect it, and we'll have backup. She smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye that reminded me of the Vivian I fell in love with. I talked to Jeffrey and your cousin Grace. They're on our side. They've seen how your mom and Timothy operate. I considered it. It was risky, confronting my family in their territory, with my mom having had time to spin her version of events. But the thought of walking in there with Vivian, of standing up to them together, was tempting. Okay, I finally agreed. But we need to be prepared for anything. The next few days were a blur of preparation. We gathered more evidence, reached out to more relatives, created a group chat separate from the family one, adding only those we trusted. Jeffrey and Grace were our biggest allies, helping us spread the truth quietly before the big confrontation. Timothy kept calling, each voicemail more threatening than the last. I saved them all, evidence of his instability, his rage. My mom tried a different approach, sending me long texts about family loyalty and forgiveness. I saved those too. The night before the dinner, Vivian stayed over again. We'd been careful not to define whatever was happening between us. It was complicated, messy. There was still hurt there, still betrayal, but also understanding, connection, something new growing from the ashes of what we'd lost. We lay in bed, not sleeping, both too anxious about what was coming. What if this backfires? Vivian whispered in the dark. What if they turn everyone against us? I pulled her closer. Then at least we tried. At least we stood up for ourselves. She nodded against my chest. No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know I'm sorry. For everything. For not being stronger. For hurting you. I kissed the top of her head. I know, I'm not saying it's okay, but I understand better now. Sunday arrived too quickly. I put on my nicest shirt, a small act of armor. Vivian wore a simple blue dress, her hair down around her shoulders. We drove to my parents' house in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. Ready? I asked as we pulled into the driveway, the familiar two-story colonial looming before us. Vivian took a deep breath. As I'll ever be. We walked to the front door hand in hand. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. They knew we were coming. Jeffrey had made sure of that, but they didn't know we were coming together. I rang the doorbell. My dad answered, his expression unreadable. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Vivian beside me, our hands linked. Andrew, Vivian. He stepped back to let us in. Everyone's in the dining room. The house smelled like roast chicken and tension. I could hear hushed voices from the dining room, conversations stopping abruptly as we approached. My grip on Vivian's hand tightened. We walked into the dining room together. The reactions were immediate and varied. Timothy half rose from his chair, face contorted with rage. My mom froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. Jeffrey and Grace, seated side by side, gave us subtle nods of encouragement. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins looked between us with expressions ranging from confusion to curiosity to disapproval. What is this? Timothy demanded, his voice cutting through the silence. I looked him straight in the eye. This is us taking back our story. My mom set down her wine glass with a sharp clink. Andrew, this is inappropriate. After everything Vivian did to you, after everything you made her do, I corrected. We know the truth, Mom, about how you threatened her, about how you and Timothy planned this whole thing from the beginning. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Timothy lunged forward, but Jeffrey stood up, blocking his path. Sit down, man. Let them speak. My mom's face hardened. I don't know what kind of lies she's been feeding you, but we have proof. Vivian spoke up, her voice stronger than I'd expected. Screenshots, recordings, witnesses. We know what you did, how you used my past against me, how you threatened to destroy my career if I didn't leave Andrew for Timothy. The room went silent. All eyes turned to my mother, whose perfect mask was beginning to crack. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. I would never. Play the recording, Andrew, Jeffrey called from across the table. I pulled out my phone and hit play. My mother's voice filled the room, cold and threatening, telling Vivian exactly what would happen if she didn't do as she was told. The timestamp at the beginning of the recording was unmistakable, months before Vivian and Timothy got together. When it ended, the silence was deafening. My dad looked at my mom with shock and disappointment. excitement. My aunts and uncles exchanged glances. Timothy stared at his plate, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. "There's more," I said into the silence. "So much more. But I think that's enough for now." My mom stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is a setup. They're trying to turn you all against us. Can't you see that?" No one responded. The evidence was too clear, too damning. "I think you should leave," my dad finally said, his voice quiet but firm. For a moment, I thought he was talking to me and Vivian, but he was looking at my mom. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice rising. "You heard me." My dad stood up too. "I want you to leave, both of you." He looked at Timothy. "I've suspected for a while that something wasn't right. The way you two have been acting, the way you treated Andrew. But this is beyond anything I could have imagined." Timothy slammed his fist on the table. "This is bull. Enough!" my dad roared, cutting him off. "I've heard enough, seen enough. Get out, both of you, now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My dad, who had always been passive, always gone along with whatever my mom wanted, was standing up to her, standing up for me. My mom looked around the table, searching for allies, finding none. Even those who had been firmly in her camp looked uncomfortable, unwilling to defend what they'd just heard. "Fine," she hissed. "Come on, Timothy." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, Timothy following behind her, shooting me a look of pure hatred as he passed. The front door slammed, the house seemed to exhale, and then everyone started talking at once, asking questions, expressing shock, apologizing for not seeing what was happening. Through it all, Vivian held my hand under the table. We'd done it. We'd told our truth, and people had listened. Later that night, back at my apartment, Vivian and I collapsed onto my couch, emotionally drained but relieved. "I can't believe your dad stood up to them like that," Vivian said, kicking off her shoes. I shook my head, still processing. "Me neither. He's never done anything like that before." "What happens now?" she asked, turning to face me. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had broken my heart, the woman who had been broken herself, the woman who had found the courage to stand up and tell the truth, despite the risks. "I don't know," I admitted, "but whatever it is, I don't think we have to face it alone anymore." She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I'd like that." I leaned in and kissed her softly. This kiss was different from the desperate ones we'd shared before. It was gentle, hopeful, the beginning of something new, something honest. My phone buzzed with texts from family members, still processing what they'd learned. Jeffrey sent a simple message: "Proud of you both." For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The truth was out. My family knew what had happened. Some relationships were broken beyond repair, but others were being rebuilt, stronger than before. Vivian curled up against me, her head on my shoulder. "Your mom will try to fight back, you know. She won't just disappear." I nodded. "I know, but we're ready for her now." And we were. Together, we were ready for whatever came next. Vivian was right. My mom didn't just disappear. The next morning, I woke up to my phone blowing up with notifications. My mom had gone nuclear overnight, posting a long rant on Facebook about how Vivian was mentally unstable and had manipulated me into turning against my family. She'd tagged everyone we knew, including Vivian's school principal. "Holy crap," I muttered, scrolling through the comments. Some people were buying it, sending my mom supportive messages. Others were confused, asking questions. A few were calling her out, including Jeffrey and Grace. Vivian was still asleep next to me, her face peaceful for once. I didn't want to wake her up to this nightmare, but I knew I had to. I gently shook her shoulder. "Viv, wake up. We've got a situation." She blinked awake, looking confused for a moment before her eyes focused on me. "What's wrong?" I handed her my phone. My mom went public. She sat up quickly, the sheet falling around her waist as she scrolled through the post. Her face went pale. She tagged my principal. "Andrew, I could lose my job over this." I put my arm around her. "We'll figure it out. We have proof, remember?" But Vivian was already out of bed, grabbing her clothes. "I need to get to the school before he sees this. I need to tell my side first." I watched her rush around, getting dressed in yesterday's clothes. "Want me to come with you?" She paused, considering. "Number, I think I need to handle this part alone, but can you forward me those recordings? And the screenshots?" I nodded, already pulling them up on my phone. "Of course." After Vivian left, I sat on my bed staring at my mom's Facebook post. The comments were still coming in, the drama spreading like wildfire. Timothy had joined in too, adding his own accusations about how Vivian had been obsessed with him for years, how she'd pursued him relentlessly while dating me. It was all such obvious bullshit, but people were believing it, people who didn't know the whole story. I decided to fight fire with fire. I created my own post, tagging the same people my mom had. I kept it simple. For those wondering about the drama, here's what really happened. Then, I uploaded the recording of my mom threatening Vivian, along with screenshots of texts between my mom and Timothy planning the whole thing. My finger hovered over the post button. This would escalate things even further. There would be no going back, but they'd left me no choice. I hit post. Within minutes, my phone started ringing. My dad first, then Jeffrey, then aunts and uncles and cousins I hadn't spoken to in months. I ignored them all. I didn't want to talk. I wanted them to listen to the evidence and draw their own conclusions. Around noon, Vivian called. She sounded exhausted. "My principal wants to meet with me tomorrow morning. He saw everything." "What did you tell him?" I asked, pacing around my apartment. "The truth. I showed him the evidence. He seemed concerned, but not about me. me, more about the potential scandal. Private schools hate bad publicity. I ran a hand through my hair. So what happens now? I don't know. He said he needs to consult with the board. She sighed heavily. But I'm not the only one dealing with fallout. Have you checked your messages? I hadn't. I'd been avoiding my phone all day. No, why? Your dad left your mom. He's staying with your Uncle Peter. I sat down hard on my couch. What? How do you know that? Grace told me. Apparently your dad saw your post and the recordings. It was the final straw. I didn't know how to feel about that. My dad had stood up for me at the dinner, which was more than he'd ever done before. But our relationship had always been distant, defined by his absence and silence, while my mom controlled everything. There's more, Vivian continued. Timothy showed up at Marlowe's place looking for me. He was hammered, making threats. Marlowe called the cops again. My stomach twisted with worry. Are you safe? Do you need to come back here? I'm okay. I'm actually at Grace's place now. She said I could stay with her until things calmed down. I felt a pang of disappointment that she hadn't come to me, but I understood. We were still figuring out what we were to each other. That's good. Grace is solid. Yeah, there was an awkward pause. Andrew, about us. My heart skipped a hit. What about us? I don't know if this is the right time to start something again. Everything's so messy, and there's still so much hurt between us. I closed my eyes, trying to ignore the ache in my chest. I get it. You're right. But, she continued, I don't want to lose you again either. Can we just take it slow? Figure things out when the dust settles? Yeah, I said, relief washing over me. We can do that. After we hung up, I checked my messages. Dozens of texts and voicemails, mostly from family members picking sides in the growing war. My dad had texted a simple, I'm sorry, son. I should have seen it sooner. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. His silence over the years had enabled my mom's behavior. One moment of standing up for me didn't erase that. Timothy's messages were less pleasant. Threats, accusations, drunken rambling about how I'd ruined everything. I blocked his number. The next few days were chaos. My mom escalated her campaign against Vivian and me, reaching out to more and more people with her version of events. But our evidence was solid, and more family members were starting to see through her lies. Vivian's meeting with her principal went better than expected. The recordings of my mom threatening to expose Vivian's childhood trauma actually worked in her favor, showing she'd been a victim of blackmail. The school put her on paid leave while they investigated, but assured her that her job wasn't in immediate danger. Timothy, on the other hand, was spiraling. After his second run-in with the police at Marlowe's apartment, he'd been issued a restraining order. He couldn't come within 500 feet of Vivian. This only made him angrier, and he redirected that anger toward me. I was leaving my apartment to meet Jeffrey for lunch when I saw him. Timothy was sitting in his car across the street, watching my building. When he saw me, he got out and started walking toward me, his face twisted with rage. You ruined everything, he shouted, drawing stares from people passing by. You couldn't just disappear like you were supposed to. I stood my ground, though my heart was racing. Go home, Timothy. You're making a scene. He laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. A scene? You want to talk about scenes? You and that lying betch have destroyed our family. Our family was already broken, I told him, keeping my voice calm. Mom made sure of that when she decided I wasn't good enough. He lunged at me then, grabbing the front of my shirt. I shoved him back, harder than I meant to. He stumbled, nearly falling. Don't touch me, I warned him. Just go home before you do something you'll regret. The only thing I regret, he spat, is not making sure you were completely out of the picture before I took Vivian. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. What does that mean? He smirked, that same expression from the engagement party that had made my skin crawl. Why do you think your car brakes failed last year? That mechanic buddy of mine does good work. My mind flashed back to the accident I'd had nearly a year ago. My brakes had failed on a steep hill. I'd crashed into a guardrail, totaling my car. I'd been lucky to walk away with just a few bruises. You tampered with my car? I could barely get the words out. You could have called me. He shrugged, still wearing that smirk. That was kind of the point. But you got lucky. You always get lucky. I didn't think. I just reacted. My fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling onto the sidewalk. Pain shot through my hand, but I barely noticed it. Stay away from me, I told him, standing over him as he rubbed his jaw. Stay away from Vivian. If you come near either of us again, I'll go to the police with what you just told me. I walked away, my whole body shaking with adrenaline and rage. I called Jeffrey and canceled lunch. Then I called Vivian. Timothy just confessed to tampering with my car brakes last year, I told her as soon as she answered. He tried to cull me, Viv. Her sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. Oh my God, are you okay? Where are you? I'm heading back to my apartment. I punched him. He was waiting for me outside. I'm coming over, she said immediately. Don't be alone right now. An hour later, we were sitting on my couch, a bag of frozen peas pressed against my swollen knuckles. I'd told Vivian everything Timothy had said. We need to go to the police, she insisted. This isn't just family drama anymore. He tried to kill you. I nodded, still processing the revelation. I know, but it's my word against his. I don't have proof. Maybe not about the car, she agreed, but we have proof of the harassment, the restraining order, the recordings of his threats. It establishes a pattern. She was right. This had gone beyond family drama. Timothy was dangerous, not just to Vivian, but to me too. We went to the police station that afternoon. The officer who took our statement statement was a woman named Officer Martinez. She listened carefully, reviewed our evidence, and took detailed notes. "We'll investigate the car incident," she assured us. "In the meantime, I recommend you both get restraining orders against your brother." We filled out the paperwork before leaving. It felt surreal, taking legal action against my own brother, but he'd left us no choice. That night, Vivian stayed over again. We didn't talk about what it meant. We just knew neither of us wanted to be alone. The next morning, my dad called. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "Andrew," he said when I picked up. His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't slept. "I just heard about what happened with Timothy. The car brakes." I sat up straighter. "How did you hear about that?" "Timothy came home hammered last night, bragging about it to your mother. He thought she'd be proud of him." My dad's voice broke slightly. "I recorded it. I've already sent it to the police." I couldn't speak for a moment. My dad had recorded Timothy's confession. He'd gone to the police. He'd chosen me. "Thank you," I finally managed to say. "I know it doesn't make up for everything," he said quietly. "For all the years I stood by and let your mother favor him. Let her hurt you. But I want you to know I'm trying to make it right now. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was a start." The police arrested Timothy that afternoon. The recording my dad provided, combined with our statements and the evidence of ongoing harassment, was enough for them to take action. He was charged with attempted murder, stalking, and violating a restraining order. My mom went ballistic. She showed up at my apartment, screaming about how I'd destroyed her family. I didn't let her in. I just closed the door and called the police. They escorted her away, warning her about harassment charges if she returned. In the weeks that followed, things slowly began to settle. Timothy was denied bail due to the severity of the charges and the risk he posed. My mom moved in with her sister, who lived across town. My dad filed for divorce. The family was fractured, split between those who supported my mom and Timothy and those who stood with me. Some relatives chose to stay neutral, uncomfortable with taking sides. I understood. Family dynamics are complicated. Vivian's school board completed their investigation and cleared her to return to teaching. The evidence of blackmail had worked in her favor, showing she'd been a victim rather than a willing participant in the deception. As for Vivian and me, we took it slow, just like she'd suggested. We went on proper dates. We talked about everything that had happened, the hurt we'd both experienced, the trust that had been broken. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, tears, moments when I wasn't sure we could move forward, but there were good moments too. Nights spent talking until dawn, lazy Sunday mornings making breakfast together, small steps toward rebuilding something that had once been beautiful before it was poisoned by manipulation and lies. 6 months after Timothy's arrest, Vivian moved in with me, not because she had to, but because we both wanted it. We were creating something new together, something honest and real. My relationship with my dad was improving too. He'd made a genuine effort to make amends, to be the father he should have been all along. We had lunch every week, just the two of us. Slowly, I was learning to trust him again. Timothy eventually took a plea deal. He'd serve 5 years for the attempted murder charge. My mom refused to accept his guilt, insisting he'd been manipulated into confessing. She and I no longer spoke. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Life wasn't perfect. There were still difficult days, still moments when the weight of everything that had happened felt overwhelming. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had Vivian. I had my dad. I had friends like Jeffrey and Grace who'd stood by me when it mattered. 1 year after that fateful family dinner where everything had exploded, Vivian and I hosted our own dinner. My dad was there. So were Jeffrey, Grace, Marlo, and a few other friends who'd supported us through everything. We cooked together, laughed together, created new memories to replace the painful ones. As I looked around the table at these people who had chosen to stand with us, who had helped us reclaim our lives from those who tried to control and destroy us, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. It wasn't the ending I'd expected for my story, but maybe it was the one I needed.